Morning, guys. I'm Dave Canterbury with Suffer Alliance Outfitters in the Pathfinder School. What I thought we'd do today is this is a little impromptu video. I had posted a photograph on my Instagram, and subsequently that goes to my Facebook page as well, about a bedroll. And it's a bedroll that I've used for a long period of time. I use a couple different ones, actually, depending on the seasonality, which we'll talk about here in a few minutes. But someone asked me about the inner components of that bedroll because it was only a picture of the bedroll basically rolled up. So I thought what I'd do is I'd pull out two different bedrolls I've got here. One is kind of a multi-seasonal bedroll, and the other one is more of a two-season type bedroll, if you will. And I thought we would look at both of those, look at the components, and then talk about, why I prefer one over the other, what components I think are good to have inside of a bedroll, and what things you could do even modern day to add things to a bedroll that may be modern gear that weren't carried traditional, but may greatly enhance your experience sleeping on the ground with something like a bedroll. So let's talk about that. Stay with me, we'll get started. Okay, so part of what I think is good about this discussion is that it lends itself well to the video series we're working on right now, In the Shadow of Nessmuk. And the reason I say that is because these are the same type of things that Nessmuk and Kephart would carry with them when they were tramping and traveling through the woods. They may have used different materials. Of course, they used the lightest weight material they could get. And some of this stuff is not really light. And that's the sacrifice you make when you try to go really traditional, is you're going to add some weight. However, in the shadow of Nessmuk and trying to find the most modern materials that we can, it's going to be very relatable to this with modern fabrics. We'll talk about that as well. So let's talk about this bedroll system first. And this bedroll system is pretty simple in its components. The bottom component, or the outermost component of this thing, is an 8x8 Tent Smith's oilskin tarp. All right. So everything is contained in that tarp. And that tarp could be laid directly on the ground and just flopped over the top of you in an envelope if that's what you wanted to do in traditional bedroll style. Or the way this one's set up is the second component or second layer in here is actually a sleeve. It's not a bag, it's actually a full sleeve. So it can be used as a raised bed and stuffed with debris in the wintertime, in which case this outer component can be used as a tarp to go completely over top of you if you chose to do it that way. Or this could be used as a browse bed, just stuffed with browse, left on the ground on top of the oilcloth, and you can sleep on the ground. The only other two components in this particular bedroll are wool blankets. And you have one that's a little bit larger than a twin but smaller than a queen, and one that is a twin. One's a little thicker than the other, but it gives you two layers. And really, layering is the key to all of this stuff when it comes to insulative value. How much dead air space can I trap between layers? So being able to have a layer of cushion that I'm sleeping on to battle conduction or sleep on top of, and then giving me something that I can roll up into in a couple different layers, gives me that option in the wintertime. So this is a very good wintertime setup. And if it were really, really cold, I would add one more wool blanket that is probably in a full queen. Now, the one component that's not in this setup because it's in my other setup, but I use it bilaterally or I use it with both setups, is this muslin flour sack that's been sewn up to half the size of a flour sack, basically, that I use as a browse bag for a pillow. I can stuff this with clothing, I can stuff with browse, I can stuff with anything, and I can use this as a pillow. I can also use this as an improvised backpack or haversack if I need to. If I don't have something like that with me, all I'm carrying is a bedroll. So I switch this in between the kits usually, depending on the one I'm carrying. This one will go in there as well. But this is more of a winter type setup, or more of a four-season setup, where you have a tarp shelter that can be used either over the top of you or around you to encompass you, depending on how you use it, a couple wool blankets, and a browse bed. Now, what I want to talk to you about is I want to talk to you about more of a two-season type setup that's a little lighter weight, obviously, because you have less components, but it's also a little less comfortable sleeping but you can make one modern addition to that to make it very comfortable to sleep in. So let's go talk about that one. Okay, so this one is nothing but what's called a gum blanket. And I talked about these in videos past when we talked about the 21st Century Long Hunter series. And a gum blanket is nothing more than a rubberized piece of canvas, basically carried during the Civil War. You can see it's about 5 feet by 7 feet, about 5 feet wide, 7 feet long. And it can be used to wrap up in as some kind of an overgarment if you needed to in the rain. It could also be used as a ground sheet, or it could be used as a tarp in an emergency as well. And all I combine with that is a queen size wool blanket. This one is a fairly heavy one. This one is an actual loom woolen blanket from a company that's no longer in business that made blankets for reenactors. This is a very expensive blanket, but it's a very warm blanket. It's got really thick pile, and it's got a lot of breathability, so you can put the layers, stack the layers together, and it works out really, really well. And for that, you only need these two components really. For, you know, anytime in the spring and summer, these two components are enough. Now, if you are not comfortable with sleeping directly on the ground, you want to get a good night's sleep, there's nothing wrong with throwing a modern component into this thing, like, you know, an inexpensive air mattress that you can just deflate, roll it up inside here, and you've got that R value of an insulative mat underneath you to sleep on the ground. You can put this underneath the blanket on top of the gum to protect it from the ground. And you could also use this with the winter setup if you wanted to, but having the browse bed kind of defeats the purpose of needing this. Whereas in this case, we didn't put a browse bed in this setup. So something that weighs not hardly anything and rolls up flat will work just fine. So an air mattress is a decent add to your kit if you're just trying to throw something together to sleep more comfortable in the woods. And again, it's lightweight, doesn't take up a lot of room, and it's not going to add anything as far as bulk really to this bedroll. Now, here's the thing that I want you to realize when we talk about these bedrolls and things like that is that you're going to actually, this is going to be your backpack per se. So you're going to put like another shirt in here, an extra pair of socks, maybe a little bit of food, some dry fire material, some extra cordage, things like that. Things that you would normally carry in a backpack, you would probably carry in this bedroll for an overnight or two, so that you wouldn't have to carry an extra backpack. And then your haversack, which is actually a food sack, not the purpose that we use haversacks for nowadays, but the original intention of the haversack or the food sack. You would carry your foodstuffs in and what you're going to cook with, and then everything else would go inside your bedroll. And that would be the two components that you would carry, were the haversack and the bedroll. Now, looking at this in a shadow of Nesmith mentality and thinking back to what we looked at when we talked about that ultra lightweight backpack, you know, we had basically a Tyvek sheet which replaced this gum blanket. Not as heavy duty, but it's also not as heavy. But it will do the job and keep you off the ground, keep your gear from getting dirty and getting tore up on the ground. And then on top of that, we use an air mattress instead of a browse bed. We use an actual air mattress. And then on top of that, we had a down quilt. Instead of having the wool blanket, we had a down quilt. And then instead of having an oilskin tarp, we used a tarp that was made from Cuban fiber. So we had ultralight material that did the same, performed the same functions in a lighter weight, more modern material. And that's exactly what being in the shadow of Nesmith is all about, is finding that balance for you on how traditional you want to be in the woods versus how comfortable you want to be in the woods versus how much weight you want to carry in the woods and how much mobility you want while you're in the woods and how long you're going to stay in the woods. All those things are really kind of a balance. But for me, I like to kind of do both. I like to do things traditional. I like to do things with modern gear. I like to mix the two and match the two. Doesn't bother me a bit. And it wouldn't bother me a bit to take an air mattress, a modern air mattress, throw it into this bedroll right here and take it out for a 2-day scout or whatever the case may be, or teach a class and sleep beside a fire in it overnight. Wouldn't bother me a bit. And I wouldn't feel guilty about having the air mattress along with a wool blanket and a gum blanket, because to me, it doesn't matter that much. If I'm really trying to go nothing but dead traditional, I do, but I just enjoy being in the woods, so I don't really pluck hairs when it comes to that stuff like some people do. I don't mind mixing modern and traditional. So let's talk about putting this back together real quick. So what you would do now is, if you're going to add something like this air mattress to the mix, you would obviously pull the plug on the air mattress, deflate it, and you roll it up inside. If you weren't going to do that, you'd put your clothes and things like that you need in there. And what I like to do is I like to have this thing so that I've got some extra room to be able to bring this over to the blanket here and then fold in both sides. In other words, close in both sides. You can see that this makes it about to where the blanket's at, and then this is going to fold over the top, or this is going to fold into the blanket and this is going to fold over the top. Either way doesn't really matter to me. Either way would be fine. But it just gives something to kind of seal that wool blanket in there to give it a little bit more protection. Then I just try to even everything up. I start with a little bit of a fold, just like that. Try to keep things even. And then I try to kind of tighten things up as I go. And again, depending on what you're doing, how much stuff you're trying to carry around with you, this doesn't have to be that much bulk. Yes, it's going to have a little weight to it, but it doesn't have to be crazy. It doesn't have to be extreme. Now, you've got your bedroll rolled up. So you're going to put your straps around that. And I like having this kind of an envelope right here in the middle, because I can tuck a squirrel cooker in there and an axe and give myself the ability to be able to slide those things out when I need them without taking the bedroll apart. And so I would take this configuration and put my bedroll straps on that. And so you've got basically a set of straps here that contain a shoulder strap, and if you take the shoulder strap off of the thing while you're doing this, it makes things much easier. And you can just lay that dude right there on the top, just like that. Bring your buckles underneath. Like that. Like that. Inside there, and just make sure you're evened up on your bedroll. You have about the same amount of hangover on both sides. In other words, just like that. Look at it, make sure you're even. And just crank her down as tight as you want to go. Depending on how much material you got in there as far as clothing and things like that, is going to dictate how tight you can get this thing, your axe. But it's a pretty simple process. Again, I've got that envelope right there. Tuck an axe into, tuck a squirrel cooker into. All I have to do is connect my strap, and there you go. And between this and my haversack, it should give me everything I need for an overnight or two, easy enough. Okay, the second one is pretty much the same system. You just got a little bit more overlap with this one as far as this part of it goes, because you have an 8-foot tarp here. But, you know, again, I'm about table length here. Got everything folded in thirds across the top on this one. Again, you do have a bigger tarp. You've got an 8x8 instead of a 5x7. Got a shield bug visiting me here. And then I just fold the front of it up like that. And again, just keep it tight and start rolling down toward the other end. Keep everything as neat as you can along the way. And when you get to the end here, you're just going to do exactly what you did before. Take an extra fold if you can in here and roll one over the top of the other, just like that. Put your bedroll straps on there. And you're ready to rock and roll. So you can see there's a bit of a size variance here because you've got more of a winter bedroll and more of a summer bedroll. So obviously one's going to be more bulky and weigh more than the other one does, and this one probably weighs double what this one does. So again, it's just a quick way that you can carry gear. It's a traditional way to carry gear, and it's not different than the gear we carry today or more modern gear. It's just set up a little bit different. You still have the same basic sheltering components no matter what you do. You need three things. You need something to sleep on, something to sleep in, and something to sleep under. You got all three of those components, you're going to be set. Your under could be a tarp, or your under could be the overflap of an oilcloth or a gum blanket. Your on top of is going to be your air mattress, could be a browse bed, or it could be a raised bed. And obviously your inside of is going to be your wool blanket, your sleeping bag, your down quilt, whatever you choose to carry. But the three components are going to be the same no matter what type of material and what time period you choose to use the materials from in your bushcrafting. So I just wanted to cover that real quick with you guys today, especially being part of the series In the Shadow of Nestmik, so we understand that really components are no different. They're just made of different material, maybe be configured a little bit different, but they all function in the same manner. I appreciate your views. I appreciate your support. I thank you for everything you do for our school, for our family, and for our business, all of our sponsors, instructors, affiliates, and friends. I'll be back with another video as soon as I can, guys. Make sure you hit the notification bell and make sure you subscribe to my channel. I'll see you on the next one, guys. Thanks.